Most people think manifestation fails because reality is slow. But what if reality was never slow at all? What if it has been responding instantly this entire time? Just not to what you think you're sending. When frequency is right, reality doesn't bargain. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't wait for proof or effort. It responds the moment the signal becomes clear. The problem is, clarity rarely lasts. Most people experience brief flashes of alignment and mistake them for stability. They feel centered for a moment, calm for a breath, hopeful for an hour. Then the familiar inner noise returns. Tension creeps back in. Expectation tightens. And when nothing moves, they assume the universe ignored them. But frequency is not a feeling you visit. It's not a mood that comes and goes. And it's not something you activate when motivation strikes. Frequency is the state your system naturally returns to when nothing is demanding your attention. When there is no outcome to impress, no future to rehearse, no one watching you perform alignment. That baseline state is what reality responds to. This is uncomfortable because it removes fantasy from manifestation. It dissolves the idea that intention alone can overpower your internal environment. Reality does not respond to what you touch briefly. It responds to what your system sustains without effort. From a quantum perspective, this isn't mystical, it's mechanical. The field organizes itself around the most coherent signal available. Not the loudest signal, not the most optimistic one, the most internally consistent one. Coherence means your thoughts, emotions, body, and expectations are no longer pulling against each other. There is no internal debate, no hidden resistance, no background tension leaking into the signal. When that agreement exists, response feels immediate. Not dramatic, not supernatural, just precise, like a natural law functioning exactly as designed. The reason this feels rare is because coherence is fragile inside a system trained on urgency. Most nervous systems are conditioned to oscillate. They surge with motivation, then collapse into doubt. They relax when progress appears, then contract when it doesn't. This fluctuation creates internal noise, and noise slows response. Neuroscience explains this without spirituality. The nervous system isn't designed to chase outcomes. It's designed to predict safety. When the future feels uncertain, the body reacts first. Breath shortens, muscles brace, attention narrows. Even positive desire is interpreted as risk because it implies change. That subtle tightening is enough to disrupt frequency. This is why people say, "It works when I stop thinking about it." What they're really describing is not surrender. It's interference dropping. Pressure releases, control dissolves. The signal stabilizes. Reality responds not because something new was done, but because something unnecessary finally stopped. Frequency becomes right when nothing inside you is resisting arrival. No bracing, no rehearsing disappointment, no scanning for signs. Just a quiet internal posture that says nothing here needs to be protected. That posture feels vulnerable, which is why it's rare. It requires trust at the level of the body, not the mind. And trust is often misunderstood. Trust is not passivity. It's a regulated state of readiness. Open, alert, and not defensive. This is where things appear to shift effortlessly, not because of magic, but because precision has returned. When desire exists without urgency, when expectation remains without pressure, when attention is focused without attachment, probability collapses cleanly. Most people never stay in this state long enough to recognize its effect. The moment coherence appears, the mind interrupts. Is this working? Should I do more? What if I lose this? Those questions tighten the system again. Frequency drops, response slows, the loop restarts. Manifestation feels inconsistent not because power is missing, but because the moment power activates often goes unnoticed. When frequency is right, reality doesn't need motivation. It doesn't need belief. It doesn't need repetition. It responds because nothing inside you is delaying it. And the real question quietly emerges. How do you remain in that state without trying to hold it? Because the moment you try to hold it, you destabilize it. That paradox is where everything changes. The brain is constantly scanning backward before it looks forward. It asks one quiet question again and again. What happened last time? And how do I make sure I'm ready if it happens again? If your past included instability, delay, or disappointment, The nervous system doesn't label those experiences as bad. It labels them as known. And what is known feels safer than what is undefined. So the body prepares to repeat familiar patterns, not because they are desirable, but because they are predictable. This is why frequency cannot stabilize through thinking. Thinking arrives after the body has already decided. By the time the mind analyzes, the posture has shifted, the breath has changed, and the internal message has already been transmitted. From a quantum perspective, this explains why manifestation slows the moment you start monitoring it. Monitoring pulls attention inward. It creates self-reference, and self-reference fragments coherence. Instead of remaining available to probability, the observer becomes emotionally entangled with the outcome. You are no longer present with what could emerge. You are watching yourself to see if it is working. Reality does not respond cleanly to that state. When frequency is right, attention moves outward. Not distracted, not passive, just unoccupied by self-evaluation. You are engaged without checking your engagement. Present without measuring presence. That absence of self-monitoring is what allows coherence to remain intact. Neuroscience refers to this as flow, but flow is often misunderstood. It is not intensity. It is not hyperfocus. It is regulation. In flow, the nervous system is active without being guarded. Energy circulates without pressure. There is movement without bracing. When regulation stabilizes, perception widens. And widened perception changes everything. You begin to notice without searching. You respond without rehearsing. You move without second-guessing. Each of these responses quietly confirms safety at the body level, and safety reinforces regulation. Over time, a loop forms. Regulation guides action. Aligned action creates confirmation. Confirmation deepens regulation. Reality reorganizes itself around that loop without resistance. This is why manifestation often feels like things simply falling into place. Not because they arrived randomly, but because they no longer needed correction. The internal environment stopped shifting, so the external one followed. Most people don't experience this consistently because they interrupt it too early. The moment movement begins, excitement spikes. Excitement tightens the system. To the nervous system, intensity does not mean success. It signals volatility. Calm, not excitement, sustains alignment. This contradicts a culture that equates power with emotional charge. But biologically, steadiness is what allows signals to remain clear. The field mirrors steadiness with speed. This is why the idea of raising your vibration is misleading. It implies effort. It implies strain. It implies reaching upward. Frequency is not raised, it is cleared. Cleared of urgency, cleared of self-surveillance, cleared of the belief that something must happen soon in order for you to be safe. Safety is the true attractor. When safety becomes internal, the subconscious releases outdated timelines. It loosens its grip on old predictions. New probabilities are allowed to register, and because nothing inside is resisting them, response feels immediate. This is also why silence becomes important at this stage. Silence is not emptiness. It is integration. It is the nervous system recalibrating without stimulation. In silence, frequency settles, and once settled, it holds. Many people rush to fill silence because stillness feels unfamiliar. They mistake quiet for loss of momentum. But momentum does not disappear in stillness. It consolidates. Reality does not respond to motion alone. It responds to direction without friction, and friction is always internal. When frequency is right, friction dissolves. Desire moves without resistance. Action feels obvious instead of forced. This is why instant manifestation often feels anticlimactic. There is no emotional surge, no dramatic payoff, just alignment completing itself. And then another question quietly arises. If coherence creates immediate response, what keeps pulling you out of it when nothing is wrong? Because the answer to that determines whether frequency remains a moment or becomes a way of being. When frequency is right, action no longer feels strategic. It feels inevitable. You stop asking what you should do. You simply respond. And response is fundamentally different from effort. Effort comes from anticipation. Response comes from presence. Most people live in anticipation without realizing it. They anticipate outcomes, reactions, delays, problems. Anticipation pulls attention forward and forces the body to prepare. Preparation creates tension. Tension doesn't just create discomfort, it fragments frequency. And when frequency fragments, response begins to lag. From a neurological perspective, anticipation is not neutral. It is a mild form of stress. Even when the anticipation feels positive, the body prepares for something that has not arrived yet. Muscles subtly contract. Breath becomes shallow. The brain starts running simulations. All of this happens beneath conscious awareness. This is why frequency drops even when you are excited about the future. Excitement is still projection. Projection places attention ahead of the present. And the moment attention moves away from now, distance is created. Distance slows response. When frequency is right, attention naturally settles back into the present without effort. Not because you practice focus, not because you forced awareness, but because there is no internal reason to leave the moment you are in. The nervous system is no longer scanning, the brain is no longer predicting, the body is no longer preparing. Presence is not a spiritual achievement, it is a regulated physiological state. From a quantum perspective, this matters deeply. Probability can only resolve where attention actually is. An observer cannot receive an outcome they are not present to meet. When attention is divided across imagined futures, coherence dissolves. The signal spreads thin. Reality responds, but weakly or slowly. This is why aligned action feels obvious. There is no debate, no internal bargaining, no emotional back and forth. The system recognizes what matches the current frequency and moves. Action arises as a consequence of coherence, not as a method to create it. This is why people often say, "I don't know why I did that. It just felt right." What they are describing is frequency-guided behavior. The nervous system sensed internal agreement and allowed movement without obstruction. Neuroscience confirms this. When the nervous system is regulated, the prefrontal cortex operates efficiently. Decision-making becomes clean. Pattern recognition sharpens. You stop evaluating options that do not resonate with your state. They don't tempt you. They don't even register. This creates the illusion that reality is narrowing choices for you. In truth, frequency is doing the filtering. When frequency is unstable, everything feels possible. When frequency stabilizes, only what aligns remains visible. This is where manifestation begins to feel immediate. Not because events appear suddenly, but because misaligned timelines stop competing for attention. The field reflects clarity by reducing friction. Most people try to create this clarity by thinking harder. That approach backfires. Thinking reactivates prediction. Prediction pulls information from the past, and the past cannot support a new frequency. This is why silence becomes essential here. Silence is not the absence of thought, it is the absence of interference. In silence, the nervous system recalibrates without being redirected. No stimulation, no evaluation, no urgency. Many people feel uneasy in this space. Silence feels exposed, as if something important has been removed. That discomfort is not failure. It is withdrawal from urgency. The system is learning a new baseline. If you rush to fill that space with effort, the old pattern reasserts itself. If you allow it, frequency settles. This is the threshold where most people turn back, not because something is wrong, but because the new state feels unfamiliar. An identity built around striving does not recognize ease. It interprets smoothness as risk. But ease is not collapse. Ease is alignment without resistance. From a quantum standpoint, this is the moment the observer becomes non-invasive. You are no longer emotionally manipulating probability. You are simply present with it, and presence resolves outcomes cleanly. This is why reality appears to respond effortlessly at this stage. Not because you command it, but because nothing inside you contradicts it. Desire is clear, expectation is neutral, attention is stable. When frequency is right, there is no waiting energy. Waiting implies separation. Separation implies lack. Lack destabilizes frequency. Instead, there is readiness. Readiness does not rush. It remains available. Availability is the most powerful signal you can send. It tells the field that nothing here is resisting arrival. And when nothing resists arrival, response does not need time to travel. It appears. Now the question changes. It is no longer how to create this state, but how not to disturb it. Because once you recognize how subtle coherence is, you realize it is maintained not by doing more, but by interfering less. That realization changes everything. When frequency is right, daily life becomes the real test. Not meditation, not intention setting, ordinary moments. Because reality does not reorganize itself in stillness alone. It responds to how you live when nothing seems important. This is where alignment is often lost. A rushed morning, a reactive exchange, a choice made from habit instead of presence. Each moment feels insignificant, yet each one quietly nudges the nervous system back to an older baseline. Neurologically, this makes sense. Habits live in the body, not the mind, and the nervous system prioritizes efficiency over evolution. The nervous system will always default to what it knows unless something interrupts the pattern. And frequency is nothing more than the accumulation of those defaults over time. This is why alignment cannot be something you switch on. It has to be something you live from. Otherwise, the signal stays inconsistent, and inconsistent signals produce inconsistent results. When frequency begins to stabilize, awareness sharpens. You start noticing how often you used to tighten without necessity, how often you rushed when nothing required speed, how often you spoke just to fill space, how often you prepared for problems that never arrived. These patterns don't disappear immediately, but now they are visible, and visibility changes everything. A pattern that is seen cannot continue to run unconsciously, and only unconscious patterns have the power to distort frequency. Once awareness enters, the nervous system stops labeling those behaviors as protective. They lose their function, and without function, they dissolve. From a quantum perspective, this is essential. The field does not respond to intensity. It responds to consistency. A single reactive moment does not collapse alignment. Repetition does. And repetition is not broken through force, but through awareness. This is where living from frequency becomes practical. You begin to pause before responding, not dramatically, but subtly. You notice the urge to rush and choose not to follow it. You feel the impulse to control timing and allow it to pass. These micro decisions appear insignificant, yet they recalibrate the nervous system faster than any technique. Neuroscience confirms this. Each time an automatic stress response is interrupted without escalation, the brain updates its internal model of safety. It learns that the present moment does not require defense. Over time, these moments accumulate, and accumulation creates a new baseline. Once the baseline shifts, frequency holds naturally. This is why alignment feels easier over time, not harder. You are no longer maintaining it. You are returning to it. The nervous system begins to recognize coherence as home. Spiritually, this is what alignment actually means. Not sustaining a feeling, but sustaining an internal posture. A posture of openness, of non-resistance, of grounded availability. When this posture stabilizes, decisions change. You stop choosing from fear of loss. You stop overcommitting to prove worth. You stop delaying action to avoid discomfort. Action becomes clean, simple, undramatic. And this is when reality begins to respond consistently instead of sporadically. Consistency is what makes response feel immediate. Not because events happen instantly, but because nothing inside you pulls away once they begin. You don't hesitate, you don't second guess. You don't tighten after the fact. The system remains open. Most people miss this phase because it feels ordinary. They expect manifestation to feel spectacular. In truth, it feels grounded, stable, almost boring to an identity that once thrived on emotional extremes. But that boredom is freedom. It means the nervous system no longer needs stimulation to stay engaged. It no longer confuses chaos with aliveness. From a quantum standpoint, this is the ideal observer state. Present without attachment, engaged without interference, clear without urgency. In this state, probability resolves smoothly because nothing is distorting it. This is why aligned people often say, "I didn't do anything special." They're right, they didn't add effort. They removed interference, and interference is always internal. As frequency stabilizes, time perception shifts. Waiting feels neutral instead of heavy. Silence feels ordinary instead of threatening. Delays feel informative rather than frustrating. These changes signal that the nervous system is no longer anchored to old timelines. Reality mirrors this quietly. Conversations resolve faster. Opportunities surface with less friction. Decisions organize themselves without struggle. You move with life instead of against it. This is what it means to live from the right frequency. Not perfection, not constant calm, but rapid return to coherence. And once return becomes automatic, reality no longer slows down to match you. It meets you where you are. When frequency is right, pressure no longer destabilizes you. It reveals you. This is the phase where alignment is tested not by stillness, but by expansion. Things begin moving faster. Opportunities stack. Decisions carry more weight. And the nervous system faces a new question. Can you remain coherent while reality accelerates? Most people lose alignment here, not because pressure is harmful, but because intensity is still associated with danger. As life speeds up, the body tightens. Breath shortens, attention narrows. Old control strategies resurface, and without realizing it, frequency slips just enough to reintroduce friction. From a neurological perspective, this is expected. The nervous system learned early that growth often came with instability. More responsibility once meant more stress. More visibility meant more judgment. More opportunity meant more risk. So when expansion appears, the body does not celebrate. It prepares. Preparation takes the form of defense, and defense shifts frequency immediately. From a quantum perspective, this is the exact moment where probability chooses a direction. If coherence remains intact, expansion stabilizes. If the system tightens, the field compensates. Timing stretches, outcomes soften. Momentum slows just enough to prevent overload. Reality is not withdrawing, it is regulating. This is why some manifestations arrive only partially. Why progress seems to plateau just after it begins. The nervous system is assessing capacity. It is asking a simple question. Can this be held without collapse? A stable frequency answers calmly. Power here does not mean pushing through. It does not mean enduring pressure. It means flexibility, the ability to remain open as intensity increases, to allow movement without gripping, to respond without rushing ahead of the moment. This is where alignment is often disrupted without awareness. People accelerate internally before life actually requires it. They over-prepare, they over-explain, they overcommit. These behaviors appear responsible, but they are defensive. And defense reintroduces noise. Neuroscience explains this clearly. When the nervous system anticipates overload, stress circuits activate even without immediate threat. Perception narrows, options reduce, and reduced options pull reality back toward familiar patterns. When frequency is right, pressure does not constrict perception, it sharpens it. You don't hurry, you prioritize. You don't brace, you adjust. The body remains regulated even as complexity increases. This is the difference between expansion that holds and expansion that collapses. Spiritually, this is where trust becomes embodied. Not trust that everything will work out, but trust in your capacity to respond. The body no longer doubts its ability to navigate the unknown. And because it does not doubt, it does not interfere. This sends a powerful internal signal. Expansion is safe. Once that signal stabilizes, the subconscious releases control. It stops the slowing progress to maintain protection. It allows reality to move at full speed. This is why some people thrive under pressure while others unravel. It is not mindset, it is regulation. One nervous system tightens, another adapts. Reality mirrors both precisely. From a quantum standpoint, coherence under pressure is rare, and rarity is magnetic. The field responds strongly to systems that can hold complexity without fragmentation, because those systems do not require correction. This is also where frequency becomes unmistakable. You stop questioning whether alignment is present. You feel it in how you move, in how you decide, in how quickly you recover when something unexpected happens. Recovery speed becomes the true metric. A powerful nervous system does not avoid disruption. It returns to coherence quickly. That rapid return prevents frequency collapse. And when frequency doesn't collapse, reality doesn't stall. This is why instant manifestation is not about removing challenges. It is about removing prolonged internal resistance. The faster coherence returns, the less adjustment reality requires. At this stage, alignment is no longer chased. It is protected, not through vigilance, but through restraint. You stop adding unnecessary tension. You stop dramatizing uncertainty. You stop rushing resolution. You allow coherence to do the work. And coherence is patient without being passive. It allows movement without forcing direction. It holds desire without urgency. It receives outcomes without shock. This is the nervous system reality responds to instantly. When frequency remains stable under pressure, expansion no longer feels fragile. It no longer feels like something that could disappear at any moment. It begins to feel normal, sustainable, expected. And when expansion feels normal, reality stops hesitating. It no longer slows itself down to check whether you can handle what is coming. It moves with you. At this stage, nothing feels forced anymore, including the future. You stop trying to arrive somewhere. You realize you have already been moving from a different place inside. This is the quiet shift where understanding turns into embodiment, where everything that once felt like information becomes orientation. You are no longer applying ideas. You are living from them. Manifestation stops feeling like a technique you use. It feels like a natural consequence of how you relate to yourself, to time, and to the present moment. The nervous system is no longer negotiating safety with the future. It is grounded here. And from this place, reality does not need persuasion. It responds because there is nothing inside you pulling away from what is unfolding. This is what people mean when they say things suddenly started working. Not because they did more, but because they stopped leaking energy into internal resistance. The system learned how to stay open without waiting for proof. It learned to trust its own regulation. And that internal stability created a clear, uninterrupted signal. From a quantum perspective, this is coherence sustained over time. From a neurological perspective, it is a nervous system that no longer confuses expansion with danger. From a spiritual perspective, it is alignment without effort. Different languages pointing to the same internal shift. And here is what matters most. Once you have felt this state, even briefly, your system remembers it. You may drift, you may tighten again, but now you know what coherence feels like, and each return becomes easier. This is why frequency work is not about perfection. It is about recovery speed. How quickly you return to regulation, how fast you stop interfering, how naturally alignment reasserts itself. Each return strengthens the baseline. Eventually, this state stops feeling special. It feels normal. And when coherence becomes normal, reality has no reason to delay. Your relationship with the future changes. You no longer look ahead with tension or anticipation. You feel prepared without rehearsing, available without scanning, grounded without effort. The future stops being something you chase and becomes something you meet. That meeting feels quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because nothing inside you is resisting what is happening anymore. If you have felt even a subtle version of this shift recently, it is not accidental. It means your system is already learning a new way of holding reality, one that does not rely on force, mental strain, or constant effort. This is the foundation behind everything that moves quickly, cleanly, and sustainably in life. Reality does not respond to effort. It responds to coherence. And coherence is not something you achieve. It is something you stop interrupting. When you understand that, manifestation stops being something you wait for. It becomes something that meets you where you are. And from that place, response no longer needs time. It simply happens.